Welcome back. It's been super rainy lately. Like, hey, let's go outside and film. Oh, we can't because there's a monsoon. So we haven't done any filming, but we have still been getting harvests of ruined vegetables. About a half decade ago, I did a video titled something like The Secret to Florida Gardening That Nobody Is Telling You. Right now I live about 5 miles from the Florida border, give or take a mile. And the rules that I shared still apply. But that's an old video, and this one's going to be much better. So today I want to share with you what makes for the most amazing Florida garden. What will give you surefire gardening success in Florida? And the answer is probably not what you think. Let's face it, Florida gardening is not easy in the traditional sense. In that, if you say, oh, it's spring, look at, I've got these seed packets, and they say to plant after all danger of frost. If I plant after all danger of frost, and I just till the ground up, and maybe I throw a little bit of organic fertilizer or something on it, it's going to grow me tomatoes, and I'm going to get beautiful cantaloupes, and I'm going to get all kinds of whatever. Guess what? Florida doesn't really work that way. Florida is a unique climate, and people move to Florida with this idea of, hey, I'm gonna do what we always did. And then they write me and they say, Florida's a terrible place to garden, I hate it. Or you'd see these comments on YouTube like, Florida is a horrible place to grow. I'm like, are you serious? It's a horrible place to grow if you don't grow what fits the climate. If you grow against the climate and not with the climate, sure. Just like if I tried to grow bananas in upstate New York. Doesn't work. You have to plant the stuff that likes Florida. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to that band, that region around the world and closer that is similar to Florida's climate. You're looking at Southeast Asia. You're looking at Central America, the Caribbean. Those crops do great. You've got Jamaicans that move into South Florida and they grow ackee trees and bananas and pigeon peas and all this kind of stuff, and they grow great. Why? Because they're suited to the climate. So if you are planting Yankee vegetables and expecting that they're going to work like they would in a nice spring, in a mild summer, etc., they don't. They succumb to bugs. They don't like the terrible soil. They succumb to diseases. They get flooded out. You know, it's either too dry or it's too hot or it's blah, 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 and stuff is just really difficult to grow. So the secret is to grow the plants that love Florida. My book, Totally Crazy Easy Florida Gardening. It's been a bestseller in Florida gardening since it came out in, I think, 2015. So that book has done really, really well because it makes Florida gardening easy. Because instead of focusing on how do you force these things to grow in a climate where they're not happy, you say, what would like this climate and grow well here? You might be used to growing white potatoes. You can grow white potatoes in Florida, but they take work. I'll tell you what does really well in Florida, yams. And not just sweet potato yams, that's a different species, but true yams, yams. Yams from Africa and Asia, great big roots. Very, very similar use to regular old white potatoes. Very good, very filling, but they take almost no work. They take so little work that some varieties are classified as invasive species by the state of Florida. I don't know about you, but something that grows a ton of food and takes so little work that it's become a weed sounds ideal, especially when we fight so hard to grow traditional vegetables in Florida. It's a perfect staple crop. So there you have your root crop. Instead of bringing in a wheelbarrow full of potatoes, you're going to bring in a wheelbarrow full of true yams. I have a lot more videos on yams. I've got write-ups on yams, and yams are also covered in the book. Another thing, runner beans. People go, man, I love those runner beans. We used to grow runner beans. Why don't you try runner beans? Well, I tried runner beans in Florida. They don't really like it. They don't like the weather that much. It may be beautiful, but they're not particularly productive. But for beans, you want to know a green bean that does awesome? They're called yard-long beans or snake beans. Southeast Asian bean. Gets like this long. Takes no work to grow. Super, super easy. Super easy. And we're talking bad soil, middle of summer, still produces. Yard-long bean is an absolute winner for Florida. So now you have your potatoes and you got your green beans. What else does well? Sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are simple. You can use the leaves as a green. You can use the roots like you would use sweet potato roots. They're a perennial in Florida. There's a lady named Michelle that I met at one of my talks down in Fort Lauderdale. Michelle has an island of them that she grows. They're part of her landscaping. You could take a sweet potato from the store, bury it, it'll start making vines, cut the vines off, stick the vines in the ground like you would root ivy. They'll start growing, they'll fill the whole area up. Put them in your landscaping. They look like a creeping ivy. It's gorgeous. Roots beneath the ground, greens above the ground. Cook the greens and eat them. Roast the potatoes, make a sweet potato pie. Super easy. Very well suited to Florida. Bananas, plantains, both of those, super easy to grow. Give them a lot of water, give them a lot of fertilizer, and they grow like crazy. They need about twice the water that Florida gives you, but the climate is good. And you can also use the green bananas as a staple crop, like a starchy root. You've got to start to say, how do the people in the Caribbean do this? We can learn from those crops and apply them to Florida gardening. Another super winner for Florida. You want to grow winter pumpkins, winter squash, like Hubbards and Boston marrow, that sort of thing. They don't really like Florida that much. They'll do well sometimes, but other times they get destroyed. So instead, what do? Grow Florida's native pumpkin. Grow the Seminole pumpkin. If you grow Seminole pumpkins, now you got your pumpkin pie. And it's a really good pumpkin. Very vigorous, grows like crazy. Dig a hole in the ground, throw something fertile in it, throw your leftovers in it, make a mound over the top, plant a few of those seeds. They'll crawl and crawl and crawl. As they grow, bury the nodes on the vine occasionally. Keeps the vine borers from destroying them. They'll cover the whole area. Then you get these pumpkins. When you harvest the pumpkins, store them for a month or two. They start to get really sweet and rich in flavor, and they keep for a year or two on your shelf, and they taste great. Super easy pumpkin. So now you got pumpkins and green beans and bananas. But doesn't it start to sound like Florida's a great place to grow? Well, I know what the next question is. What about tomatoes? I can't grow tomatoes. I used to grow those great tomatoes back up in my Yankee hellhole. Well, I'm sorry. You can't grow great tomatoes in Florida. Like if you're thinking these great big beefsteaks and stuff. Well, you can grow it, but you pretty much have to be some sort of minor deity to pull it off regularly. I mean, you have to be like, shooting power out of your hands. There's a portion in Totally Crazy Easy Florida Gardening on growing tomatoes in Florida. And I interviewed this master gardener friend of mine, and she's like, well, I do this and 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 this. I'm like, I lived in Tennessee for a while. We just stuck transplants in the ground and we got tomatoes. And for her, it's like this 12-step process to maybe getting a tomato. But I have an answer for that too. There is a little tiny wild tomato that is a Florida native, allegedly. It's called Everglades Tomato. Sweet, tart, delicious, amazing. I grow them all over the place here, and they are unbelievable. I'll actually put a link to seeds below because my daughter has a little seed shop and she sells them. But we have found this tomato to just rock through the heat. It goes through the bugs and the weather and everything. Now, it's like, if you want to slice them and put them on a hamburger, it's going to take you some effort because it's a little tiny tomato. It's like half wild. But they're sweet, tart, they're delicious. They grow tons of tomatoes. They're super easy to grow. And they always get through. So now you got tomatoes and green beans and bananas and sweet potatoes, and that's just a start. If you delve into the riches of the tropics and start planting Florida that way, you don't have to have really fancy raised beds. You don't have to truck in soil. There's a lot of techniques for getting your soil better and growing and gardening that I discuss in the book, but really the key, the secret to Florida gardening is to plant the plants that thrive in Florida. And one more tip, fruit trees. Florida's a great place to grow fruit trees, easier than vegetables. So just some thoughts there. So check out the links below this video. You don't have to give up. You don't have to worry about Florida gardening. It's totally possible, and I'm happy to help you do better at it. So be sure to like and subscribe. Catch me on the web at thesurvivalgardener.com. Check out Totally Crazy Easy Florida Gardening below if you want my guidebook to growing in Florida. And until next time, may your thumbs always be green.
I'm driving with the top down, baby. Rain won't stop me. I'm high on black coffee, baby. Your blues won't rock me. I'm planting on the seed cone, baby. Some crows can't stop me. I'm cranking up the bass and baby.
You didn't really think I was going to waste it, did you? No, I'm going to turn it into eggs.